I'm Matt McClure, and this is Currents.
The shaky economy hits home. How one Brooklyn parish is trying to help.
You learn how to help people. That's what you can learn, how to help others before you help yourself.
Counseling for Life on New York sidewalks.
We have teams of sidewalk counselors who try to reach girls and women on their way in for an abortion.
And growing up the niece of Martin Luther King Jr.
I work very hard every day to first forgive others, to ask God to forgive me, to love.
Well, good evening. Francesca Maxime has the night off. Well, more people are showing up, but there's less to give. I'm talking about food pantries. Now, a recent study shows more than half of families with children in New York City have trouble affording food. In these tough times, though, the local food banks are seeing more people and really more need out there as well. We recently visited a pantry at one Brooklyn parish to see how it's fulfilling its mission.
You need the patience of Job and the wisdom of Solomon.
In East Flatbush at Holy Cross Church, it's Tuesday and the workday is just starting.
My name is Faye Buchanan. I'm the food coordinator here for the food pantry, and I volunteer 2 days a week, except when I have a delivery. I may be here 4 or 5 days for the week. My calling is to help these people. I see them coming here. Some of them, Lord knows, they need. And you pray to God that there is a solution.
The church has a food pantry available to its parishioners. The volunteers come twice a week to distribute groceries to families that are in need. The food pantry relies on community collections as well as individual donations of food.
The donations are not the same, the fundings are not the same. Everything's been cut. But somehow I try to manage these funds and order what I think is nutritional. We have to order fresh fruits and vegetables. How many we got out?
About 20 so far.
By 2 p.m., the line at the front door snakes around the side of the building. Some have been waiting for almost an hour. The first person is called in to present proof of ID and address to collect a ticket for a bag of food waiting in the basement.
Hello, Mr. Key, how are you?
They're allowed one visit for each month and receive a bag that will have approximately 9 meals.
Every time you give somebody a bag, Jesus that you're feeding one of his children. Beside the food, you could give them a little wording also, you know, to tell them how to live, how to have courage, how to have faith, you know, try to go to church, go to confession, you know, and seek the Lord more, that when you're in need and when you depend on Jesus, things will come, he will provide for us.
It's good to help others. There's a need in this neighborhood for it, so we need to do it. And as a parishioner, I think I should give back a little. Thank you. Have a good day.
What can you learn for those who volunteer? You learn how to help people, and that's what he does. That's what you can learn, how to help others before you help yourself, you know, and then he will help you. You know, put others ahead of yourself.
We've always known, growing up, the Lord provides. And my parents, thanks to them, they brought us up as religious as they could. We went to parochial schools. And they always made us feel, try to help somebody, no matter what.
It's supposed to be God's word, that ways to help people in need. That's what we do here when you're one of God's people. You know, you got to play the part and do the part. You know?
At the end of the day, when I go home, I said, thank you, Jesus. You dragged me through this day. I dragged myself through this day with your help. And I was able to help some people. I was not able to help everybody, but somehow it was good. It was good.
Well, people definitely doing some good work there at the Holy Cross Church Food Pantry. And there are a lot of people in our area working hard to help the hungry. To see more of that, just head on over to our website. It's netny.net/currents. And stay tuned. We have more currents straight ahead. Coming up, don't kiss that saint. Another way of preventing swine flu. Also, don't touch your remote control, because we have that and the rest of the day's headlines.
and a major look into ancient times.
Welcome back to Currents. I'm Matt McClure. Coming up a little bit later on, pro-life counseling on New York sidewalks. But first, let's have today's headlines. Jewish groups in the U.S. are questioning a statement from the Catholic Bishops' Conference on salvation. The groups view the new statement to mean that bishops see dialogue as a chance to convert Jews. Bishop William Laurie of Bridgeport, Connecticut, though, responded that while the Catholic Church does not proselytize the Jewish people, at the same time, it doesn't fail to witness its faith, nor invite Jewish people to share that faith whenever appropriate. Well, the Muslim month of Ramadan begins tomorrow. During the month, Muslims fast from sunrise to sunset and practice self-sacrifice and prayer. Ramadan is observed by more than 1 billion Muslims worldwide. After more than a month of rehabilitation after injuring his wrist, Pope Benedict had his cast removed today. X-rays showed the Pope's wrist is healing as expected. A doctor says the Pope will begin physical therapy to recover the full use of his right hand. Well, if you're going to Spain, don't kiss the saint. For centuries, Catholics have visited one of the church's holiest shrines in Spain, Santiago de Compostela. It's been customary for visitors to hug and kiss the statue of St. James that's located there, but concern over H1N1 influenza, commonly known as swine flu, have led Spain's Catholic Church to advise pilgrims against kissing the statue. The move comes after Spain's health ministry started a campaign on how to keep the swine flu from spreading. Well, no such warnings in Italy right now. As we hear from Rome Reports, you can see the foundations of the church at an historic basilica.
For the first time, one of the oldest basilicas in Rome is opening its underground doors to the public. Santa Maria Maggiore, or Saint Mary Major, is built on top of layers of pre-Christian history.
You can see everything that existed before the construction of the basilica, and how the construction of the basilica didn't destroy anything below. Everything remained conserved underneath.
Monsignor Michel Dagos led the first public tour of the basilica's underground, before only open for students and special tours. For hundreds of years, Santa Maria Maggiore has preserved pieces of history trapped in time underneath its floors. Today, it acts as a time machine, giving clues as to how people lived before the arrival of Christianity.
You can imagine how life was here on the Esquilino, one of the hills of Rome, mainly in Cispio. That's what this part of the Esquilino was called, where we are now, and Pope Sixtus III built this basilica.
The basilica was built on what used to be a private residence, dating back to the year 332 BC. Over the years, it evolved until the years of Christianity, but it still harbors key historical clues that survive time, like this ancient Roman calendar, for example, depicting the month of September with pictures of agriculture and crops painted on a wall. It's likely that the owner of the home was a nature enthusiast from the middle class. St. Mary Major is also the resting place of popes and cardinals. Artist Gian Lorenzo Bernini is also buried here. Built around the 5th century AD, the basilica is one of the 4 papal basilicas in Rome. It's famous for its rich history both above and underground.
Now, this is a very significant time in the veneration of Mary. Last Saturday, Catholics celebrated the Feast of the Assumption, and tomorrow, the Feast of the Queenship of Mary. Stay tuned. There's much more current straight ahead.
Coming up, a direct approach in the abortion battle.
Hundreds of women come in and get ultrasounds and choose life, who would have otherwise had an abortion.
In a move that some say has the potential to inhibit the work of pro-life sidewalk counselors, New York City's Clinic Access Bill went into effect on July 20th, just over a month ago. Now, among the groups that could potentially be affected, Helpers of God's Precious Infants. They hold a monthly mass and vigil during which they pray outside abortion clinics, and we've recently featured them on our show. And another group that's also expressing concern about the clinic access bill, Expectant Mother Care EMC Frontline Pregnancy Centers. Back in June, I had the chance to speak with Chris Slattery, the organization's founder and president.
Our outreach has been in New York City for 25 years, and we have counseled 100,000 girls and women in crisis pregnancy over those years, starting out in Manhattan in the mid-'80s, and we're now all over the city. We have offices in the Bronx, Queens, and Brooklyn. And every year now we serve over 7,200 girls and women, most of whom are pregnant. We reach most of them in the dozen clinic offices that we have throughout the city. But we also, like the Helpers of God's Precious Infants, have a street outreach, which we do primarily in the Bronx and in Queens. We have our own mobile clinic with ultrasound on board. We take it to the sidewalks around abortion clinics, and we have teams of sidewalk counselors who try to reach girls and women on their way in for an abortion.
Gotcha. So what kind of response have you received from mothers who maybe have come into those mobile clinics and maybe seen an ultrasound?
Well, it's been tremendous, especially the better the weather, the better the response. If it's raining, if it's a heat wave, people want to get off the sidewalk and right into a air-conditioned or heated building. But we have climate control in our little minibus, and if we're successful in getting a conversation going, just this morning we had a woman come into our minibus before 8 a.m. in the South Bronx. Last week we had one day where we had 7 young women come in for ultrasounds and counseling, women that had abortion clinic appointments, literally steps away from our minibus. And on an annual basis, literally hundreds of women come in and get ultrasounds and choose life, who would have otherwise had an abortion.
Now, tell me a little bit about, for those who may just be joining us, tell me a little bit about what the clinic access bill is.
The New York City Clinic Access Bill, number 826, is a bill that was debated first in the fall of '08 and was passed on April 20th of this year, passed and signed into law by the mayor, a bill that was overwhelmingly endorsed by the City Council, 38-8. It basically is a way for the pro-abortion forces, in my opinion, to literally hose us off the sidewalk with a bogus legal maneuver that will empower the abortion clinic to literally make the charges against the pro-life forces without the input of the actual mother that was allegedly harassed by us. In other words, it's like Democrats being able to accuse Republicans of bad behavior out on the sidewalk, or the Ku Klux Klan gets to charge the civil rights activists on the streets with harassment of their people going in. It's completely biased. You're giving a tool to two sides of a contentious issue and debate, of course, and you're allowing one side to say the other is running foul. The person who is going in for an abortion has traditionally had to make the charge of harassment if she feels she's harassed. Well, the police almost never make arrests of our people throughout the city because we're peaceful, we're loving, we're caring, and no harassment, no arrest. Now an abortion clinic can make a charge, and we're very concerned about it because it's going to put us on a first offense, 6 months in jail and a $1,000 fine. Second offense, $5,000 fine and a year in jail for simply offering in love a pamphlet to a woman on the sidewalk. If that's perceived as harassment, and it usually is, just that act, by an abortion clinic, they can have us locked up.
Right.
That is scary.
And I also should point out as well that our producers had contacted NARAL. They had contacted several other pro-choice groups and those that would advocate for choice for abortion, and they had refused to come on the show. So just to put that out there so everyone knows that they had been contacted.
I think they're embarrassed, frankly, that they are trampling on our First Amendment rights so badly, because the left has traditionally been a great advocate of the rights of free speech and assembly. Now, I'm going to be the first guy to say No one has the right to touch a stranger on the sidewalk. No one has the right to block their passage. No one has the right to physically intimidate them. And if any of us do that, we should be arrested. But we don't do any of it. And what I fear is that just by literally walking a few steps along someone and handing them a brochure and saying something that may annoy them, even though it was not aggressive speech, that is going to be perceived as harassment. That has never been the standard of harassment in our city or in our country.
Yeah. All right. Well, Christopher, thank you so much for being here today. We appreciate it.
Thanks a lot, Matt.
Thanks. Well, that is Chris Slattery there, founder and president of Expectant Mother Care, EMC Frontline Pregnancy Centers. Now, we've contacted him since that interview, and he says that since the clinic access bill went into effect, his workers have so far not been affected. But he added that one of his interns was given a ticket before the law went into effect, and they are fighting that. Stay tuned. There's much more Currents coming up straight ahead. Coming up, life lessons from a king. Well, we just heard Chris Slattery talk about the work of the crisis pregnancy centers and counseling services he operates in New York City. But there are others who travel around the country spreading a pro-life message. Among them is Alveda King, the niece of the Reverend Martin Luther King Jr. She's continuing her family's civil rights legacy, she says, in her case, speaking out for the rights of the unborn. She sat down with us to discuss her family and share her life lessons. Alveda King is tonight's eyewitness.
And I remember my grandfather, Martin Luther King Sr., who I always said was my very best friend, and he would say, I've got faith, I've got hope, and I've got love. And he says, I'll never stoop so low as to let another man cause me to hate him. And so I work very hard every day to first forgive others, to ask God to forgive me, to love. Very often I read the Bible, I worship, I play worship music, and I pray. And I pray every day. But the most important thing that I can do is to love somebody every day and to not do evil to others, and I work very hard to live that way as well. Birmingham is being called Bombingham because they were bombing houses and churches and motels. I went to school with one of the little girls. You couldn't really understand. As I can remember being 12 years old as a child, how could somebody do this to little girls who never did anything to them? It was one of my very first lessons in forgiveness because my parents, my daddy, said you cannot hate the people who did this. And I remember that just as clearly. My daddy's voice, I can hear it now. And he's like, you can't hate the people that did this. And we're going to go out and we're going to march. And he said, we'll take the children because surely they won't harm any more of our children. When I was a very little girl, I went to Ebenezer Baptist Church. And around the corner, there was a lovely Catholic church. And a little friend of mine who was also going to Catholic school at the time, our church service was long enough that we could check in at the Baptist church, sit up in the balcony, slip out and go to Mass, and finish Mass and come back to church. And so I've attended Mass many, many times over the years. I believe that the Catholic Church has demonstrated and proven that they are the leaders in the life movement, and I have a tremendous respect for that. On the day that I'm 100, I would like to think back and believe that I have given everything I could to
Alveda King there, tonight's eyewitness. And just this week, she actually joined a couple of pro-life organizations in calling for health care reform that specifically forbids federal taxpayer funds of abortion, going toward abortion and also going toward euthanasia. And you can read more about Alveda King on our website. And there's actually a lot to do on our website. You just go to netny.net/currents. You can see clips of the show there. You can meet the people that make it all happen. And right now, You can not only check all that out, but you can also win some baseball tickets. Told you could do a lot at our website. We have family packs of 4 tickets to see the Brooklyn Cyclones when they face off against the Vermont Lake Monsters next Tuesday, August 25th. And I still stand by my statement that minor league baseball teams have the best mascots ever. The Vermont Lake Monsters. Of course, the Brooklyn Cyclones. Who else names a baseball team after a roller coaster? You know, who knows? But all you have to do to win those tickets to see the Cyclones and the Lake Monsters, go to our website. It's netny.net. Click on the Cyclones ad that's there. Follow the instructions and we'll let you know if you're a winner. Now, if seeing the game isn't enough in and of itself, you get the added bonus of seeing my lovely co-anchor, the talented Francesca Maxime, throw out the first pitch. Of course, we'll have to see how talented she is at pitching, you know, before we can say that she's a talented pitcher as well as she is an anchor, but we'll find out, I guess. Well, that's all for this edition of Currents. For all of us here, I'm Matt McClure. Thank you so much for watching. Have a great weekend.